When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
Welcome to Accelerate Your Business Growth, where we're exploring all sorts of business topics. Experts from around the world join me, your host, Diane Helbig, for a conversation where they share their expertise with all of you. Take what you need when you need it. Featured on Inc.com, Forbes, and MSNBC's Your Business, this podcast is recognized as one of the best podcasts for small business, sales, leadership, social media, and more. When it comes to business, Accelerate Your Business Growth has got it covered. And now on with the show. My guest today is Michelle Scribner. Michelle is the CEO of Sum of All Numbers, a leading financial analysis and planning company with full charge bookkeeping services. Her passion is working directly with entrepreneurial business owners, helping them to achieve greater profitability, as well as working through the ongoing challenges and stresses of running a business. She comes from an entrepreneurial family with businesses based in real estate investing and development, and I meant to say, and I am thrilled to have her here as my guest. Thanks so much for being here today, Michelle.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here with you.
I am thrilled to have you here. We are going to be talking about the Profit First mindset, which I think is quite a big deal. And you say game changer for small business owners. I agree with you. So let's dive in. What would you say are the key financial indicators that small business owners often overlook, but shouldn't be?
When we're implementing Profit First, and this is to help business owners with their cash flow, I think it's really critical to recognize as an owner where your thresholds are in where your stress is for money and where your pain points for managing your money. And I mean it in the sense of there are many business owners where debt doesn't bother them one bit. And so they'll make decisions that will get them in trouble because they're not afraid of debt. And on the opposite side, there are many that are scared to death of debt, and they will make business decisions because of that as well. So I look at in your cash when managing cash flow as a business owner to really pay attention to what your personal behaviors are, and then set up some strategies to protect you or to enhance that those pieces.
Got it. Yeah, this is so important. I mean, it's interesting to me how I think business owners focus so much on bringing revenue in that they don't pay attention to profit. They don't pay attention to cash flow, right? As you're saying, and then all of a sudden they don't have the money that they want or need to do the things they need to do in their business.
And most people who are entrepreneurs have a very optimistic outlook on life. Oh, I can get this done. I've got this great idea. I've got these wonderful things. We're just going to make this happen. And so that is why we have so many great businesses in America here, because of that spirit inside. And yet at the same time, recognizing that most of the time we think if I just make a few more dollars or the next sale, then all my problems will go away. Instead of recognizing that, hey, a few more sales may make some of the problems go away, but it also doesn't mean that there's going to be more money in your pocket, which is that profitability piece. And
Yeah.
it's part of the reason why we go into business for ourselves in the first place is that we have an expectation that I'm going to have more time and more money if I just am my own boss and do my own thing. And then reality sets in. And if we don't really watch that and set up some guardrails with it, profit first being one of those, then what ends up happening is we become a slave to our businesses and find that everybody else gets paid except ourselves and that we're working harder than anybody else around us.
Yeah, boy, it's so true. So, will you explain the concept of profit first, please?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the whenever a sale comes in or any money that comes into a business, then you immediately start, I'm going to say the word siphon, you start siphoning off the cash into different buckets or bank accounts. This kind of goes back to olden times when there was the envelope system where your money came home and you put cash, the actual dollars, cash in envelopes. This was for groceries. This is for the rent payment. This was for utilities. This was for savings. This is for taxes. So we do the same thing for our business. And we call it profit first because if the first dollars, as the money comes in and you're going to disperse it amongst the different envelopes, if we pay ourselves first, then that money is there as the reward for the risks that we take in our business. Then put aside for our taxes, put aside for paying ourselves for the work we do in the business. And then whatever is left is what we have to operate our business on. That's the concept of profit first. And when you siphon it off into different bank accounts and you're only looking at how much money do I have to spend in my business, that's only in your operating expense bank account. And you see a smaller dollar amount than if you saw all of it. And something happens in our brains that says, oh, I've only got that much. Okay, well, let's function on that much then, instead of seeing the whole pie.
Got it. Yeah, boy, it's so because then you're dealing with it feels like the reality, the money that you actually have, not
Yeah, this kind of comes into our psychology and our behaviors of think of it if you've got a huge plate of food in front of you that's filled up, that you will eat that much before you feel full, versus if you have a smaller plate and then this is all I've got, and it is satisfying, where you're just, that's all I need.
yeah.
So oftentimes we make decisions based upon what is in the bank. And can I hire somebody else? Well, how much cash do I have? Or can I expand? Or can I take on a marketing project? Can I purchase a new printer? Whatever it might be for our businesses. And then we go to, well, what does the bank account say? And so if we've got our cash that is split up between different bank accounts, then we go right to our operating account and say, how much do I have here in my operating account? When I'm working with businesses, sometimes we even go a step further and say, what are other points of our business that keep us up at night? Payroll is often one of the biggest ones because the
Sure.
consequences for not paying your payroll are huge.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes we'll even break up it even more into, all right, well, let's have a payroll account. Or there are some people that you've got large one-time expenses, whether it's a workers' compensation audit, maybe property taxes that are just due once a year, insurance payment. Some companies, they have got large purchases that they make once a year. And so if we set aside that money and just know it's there when that expense comes, I've already set the money aside. the relief that you feel from that allows it almost frees up your energy to be able to focus on other parts of your business. Because I know I've got that taken care of. I don't need to worry about it. Let's go take care of what the next issue in my business is. So if you have a cash flow problem, there's a lot of energy that it takes from you as a business owner.
Yeah.
And if you can resolve that, now you can focus on, how do I grow this business? How do I develop my team more? How do I put systems into place so that we're functioning and I can walk away for a few weeks and the business runs by itself? Because we know as being business owners, there's always something that needs to be worked on. So let's remove cash flow from that list of something that needs to be worked on so that we can push our businesses forward.
Right, right. And talk some about, for businesses, small businesses that have a leadership team, like what are the key components of a high performing leadership team and the contribution that has towards a company's financial health?
I just got back from a conference and we are talking about, as an entrepreneur, we often think my job is to create this service or this product and make the world a better place. But in actuality, what we're doing is I've got a service or product that's going to make a better place. And my job as an entrepreneur is to create jobs for other people to bring this service or this product to the world. And so as an entrepreneur, our end goal is to have our service or our product to be delivered to the world without it being dependent upon us. And that can't happen until you've got a good leadership team to make sure all the elements are in place. Now, when you first start a business, this is not the time. You do everything yourself. You bring on your first employee to start delegating things. But at some point, you grow to large enough where it's like, it's time for me to get other people that are working alongside of me that have personality traits that are opposite mine, so that we can really look at this business from all angles and from the different strengths and weaknesses of individuals, and now create a business that can function without you as the owner being at the hub of the wheel. And most oftentimes, we are most comfortable with people who think exactly like we do. And yet, this isn't the best way to push our businesses forward.
Yeah.
We truly need a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different strengths. And the best part is there are so many assessments and tools out there available to us to have us recognize our own traits and our strengths and weaknesses, because oftentimes we're aware of our greatest strengths and our greatest weaknesses, but maybe some of not of the other parts, and then help us identify where we could really benefit from finding someone who is opposite us.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I think that business owners really need to embrace, is that you want differing views, you want other ideas, because that's where innovation comes from.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you've got to have people that, for example, I am wonderful at getting something going and rallying the troops around me, getting 90% of it done, and then brushing off my hands and moving on. And that 10% is just like down there. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. And so I found a brilliant person that is her strength. She finds so much joy in finishing the 10%. And at first I felt horrible because I'm like, oh, I'm just creating all these 10% things for somebody else to pick up after me. And because I don't enjoy that last 10%. I like all the big impact and that wrapping up all the loose ends pieces, like, yeah, that there's no criticalness in it, though there is criticalness. And she is just happy as can be being in that. And it has been an amazing partnership in our personalities. Now, there have been a few times we have completely clashed with one another,
Huh.
to the point of saying, you don't value my not idea, but I don't think you value this or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And at that point, we were able to step back and say, oh my goodness, I value that greatly. What do you need to hear from me? Because I value it so much because I don't enjoy doing that. And what came out of that conversation was, well, if you don't enjoy it, then you don't value it. And I thought, no, that's exactly not correct. That's exactly not correct.
Yeah.
So, but it was such a wonderful aha moment for both of us of like, need you, but you need me just as much as I need you. And
Yeah.
so when we clash, let's have this conversation of what element of it is that we're clashing. It usually comes from where our strengths and our weaknesses are, and the fact that we line up so beautifully together. So I think that's another part of your leadership team is when you find that to be okay with sometimes having that tough conversation to work through why um, why you might not feel as appreciated when that
Yeah.
really isn't the case.
Because when you say that out loud, I get it. I can see how someone would feel that way, but I can see both sides, right? I can also see
Mhm.
how you wouldn't be thinking that at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's this guy came and talked and he was a real innovator, just idea after idea after idea. And he got paired up with someone else who was the same way and they had amazing ideas and they were given a huge budget to implement it. Well, neither one of them were implementers. And so nothing got done. So the next year he got paired up with someone who was just methodical and everything. And they hated each other when they started. And because they were so opposite that they drove each other crazy.
Wow.
And then the amount that they got accomplished was astronomical. They just hit a home run. And that was for me the eye opener of, oh my goodness, there are going to be times where I drive somebody else crazy just because of my personality traits, which flow into where my strengths and weaknesses are. So as soon as I was able to say that to my leadership team, then they all laughed. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to drive you crazy. And when it comes to those places of me driving you crazy, then it's time to have a nice conversation.
Yeah.
In fact, just this Monday, our leadership team was saying, there's we've hired a new employee and they just mentioned how chaotic it is. And I said, well, that stems from me because I don't see chaos. I am just like, that's just normal life, chaos here, chaos there. And I said, so we're the nature of this business constantly going to be feel like chaos because I'm the one leading it. So your job is how do we not have the perception of chaos go beyond Michelle? And they all just laughed. And I said, that's what your job is to take the ideas and the flow because as entrepreneurs, we're constantly, oh, that's a great idea. Let's see about this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. Let's see about this. And we have no fear of just jumping in. Let's try
Yeah.
it out. Well, that's a perceived chaos, especially in the company that I run, which is all around accounting and bookkeeping. Those are very methodical people. That's
Yeah.
why they are brilliant because
Right.
everything is it's like laundry. It gets dirty, it gets clean. It gets dirty, it gets cleaned. And that's what bookkeeping is. It's a all these numbers come in and you organize it and it's beautiful. Then all these numbers come in and you organize it and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that their personality traits, they love that. So so I don't want a chaotic company, but I also don't want a stagnant company. And so
Yeah.
they are the stopgap. They are the ones, my leadership team of all right, we know what needs to get done, but there are things happening in the world like AI and college kids not going into bookkeeping and accounting. If
Mm.
we, and I can see all of this, but my foresight is extremely, extremely strong. So if we don't start making changes now, then in 10 years, we're going to be behind or in a real tough place. So what are we going to do now to prevent that in 10 years? Well, a typical bookkeeper is like, well, that's 10 years. We don't need to worry about it then. That's why there's a good balance. So now they take my leadership of, I can see that coming. What are we going to start doing? And let's not make it chaotic, but let's put some systems into place. And boy, they ran with it because there was an empowerment that took place instead of a yes, sir, yes, ma'am. It was like, no, we're a team here.
Yeah.
Let me shine in my brilliance, and I'm going to let you shine in yours. And together, we're really going to take this company where it needs to be in the appropriate steps it needs to be to get there.
I am so grateful that you shared that with the listeners. I think that is key to everything that, we're talking about, right? And it's such a great example of understanding yourself, having real good self-awareness, and surrounding yourself with people who have those skill sets and enjoy doing those things that you don't necessarily enjoy doing, but can take, so you can be the visionary and they can be the structure and the systems and the process. And so both of those areas get what they need, and you don't have people in places that they just, it's not their zone of brilliance.
Yes, or that you never remove yourself from the company.
Yeah.
So if as an entrepreneur, you just surround yourself with the yes, ma'am, no, ma'am people, which we need in the beginning, we do.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you have to say, I'm not going to be around for forever.
Yeah.
And how is this going to function? So, Diane, my daughter had twins on Monday, and I haven't worked this whole week except for our call here today. Because I could literally walk out and I could walk away and know this company can be just fine without me. And I can check in next week at when I'm a little bit more focused on it. But that's what we want as an entrepreneur, is to literally walk out the door and say, I won't see you guys for a week. And this was not, the delivery was not planned for this week. So this was, my schedule was not blocked off.
Yeah.
And there wasn't, everyone just stepped right in. But that didn't happen overnight. And I want to go back to, I am not a naturally self-aware person, but it is so important to me that I have really dove in deep for it. And like I've said before, there are so many tools and out there that it's always been a great interest of mine, which is nice. But I'm going to say that every time a new tool comes out and I just read the book that's out there, Patrick Lencioni just had one on the working genius, and I heard him speak on it. And that just gave me another aha moment, like, oh my goodness, that's a little bit more about myself. But then when you realize it about yourself, most often, then I laugh and said, oh, I thought everybody was this way. And then, which is such a silly thing to say, because of course they're not, but but every single time I find out something about myself, I'm like, oh my gosh. And not everybody else thinks this way too.
Yeah.
And so then it makes me a little bit curious. Well, how do you approach that? Or how did you respond to this? And as a leader in your business, if you approach your team with a sense of curiosity, you avoid a lot of problems instead of making assumptions. And so there have been times where I've had to put someone on a performance improvement plan, which is not a comfortable thing to do.
Yeah.
And in that, then we can have that curious. When I say this to you, I'm curious, how does that feel back? And then once I get that input, then I can say, now, can I explain why I say that this way and what I need to see out of you so that we can move forward and that we can resolve this and really get you to where you need to be. So what I just explained here is me still wearing the chief hat and they're wearing the peon hat.
Sure.
Well, when you're talking in a leadership group, what I want my leadership team is, everybody take off your hats and we all act like we're board members. Now let's do something powerful here. And so
Hmm.
But having that sense of curiosity, okay, well, why would you say what are you seeing that I'm not seeing here? There, if we're able to have that humility as a leader,
Mhm. Yeah.
and then ask the question with it, then not only do we see where our shortcomings and why our way of thinking might prevent the business from going further, um, but it also allows us to then be more of a team environment to really, really catapult things forward.
Exactly. So curiosity is my favorite thing. I'm so glad you brought it up
Yeah,
because I think
but it's not a natural thing, Diane.
no.
That's the part is that um is I had to train myself
Yeah.
to be curious. When the moment that and I mean, it was 8 years ago. I know exactly where I was when all of a sudden I realized it. Oh my goodness, I'm a fix and judge person. Everything you say, I either have a statement to fix it or to judge what you've said.
Hmm.
And and then I was taught to be curious. And boy, I because I wanted to fix that part of myself, um, I had to work hard to become a curious person. And then I see people around me who are naturally curious, and I'm so envious that they're naturally that way and they didn't have to learn it because I think, boy, I wasted a lot of years not, where because the power in being curious
Yeah.
allows for deeper conversations, it
Yeah.
allows for deeper relationships, it allows for more wisdom. Boy, it's amazing. It's amazing gift for those people who have it. But I'm going to say it can be something if you want that, you can work on it and make it happen for yourself too. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity that opened my eyes to it, that I'm like, oh, it just allows for better experiences all the way around.
It truly does. And it avoids so much heartache and conflict and confusion. You gain time by being curious in my opinion.
Well, and look at as a leader, it's when you're the business owner, you can fire anybody in a moment, and they know that. And so if you come at things from a place of curiosity
Yeah.
with the people that you work with, you open up the ability to have uh, interaction
Yes.
that now becomes a team player.
Yep.
Because as much as you would like to be a team player, everyone knows you're the one that can just make their job go away in a moment.
Right.
So when you operate from a place of curiosity, you can have more difficult conversations that
Yeah.
need to take place for the growth of yourself, the other person, and the company, and take away some of that fear that often comes with being at the top of the food chain, in essence.
Yeah. Right. Right. It's so funny. It's that there's small business owners who will say, we're a family here. And I'm thinking, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You can want to
Yeah.
be.
We're like, what kind of family are you talking about? Because we watch all
Yeah.
sorts of families on movies and TV. So are you talking it in the way that we want it to be or not?
Right. Right.
And I'll bring this circle back into like what we were talking about in the beginning with cash flow. As an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, I'm used to taking risks all the time.
Yeah.
So if I don't see things coming together very nicely, I'm like, it doesn't phase me, especially on the
Right.
financial side. I'm
Right.
like, okay, I know where that is. I know where that is. And I always have a plan B in mind.
Yeah.
But that's not something that you often share because you're not used to it. So as my leadership team has come in, there was a real sense of fear. I had no idea because those that were paying the bills and could see, hey, the cash flow isn't where it's supposed to be, they literally afterwards said, I had to go to my therapist because I was so worried about my not having a job. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Because they could see writing on the wall that seemed like there was a problem. And I looked at this and said, okay, let's go back to the personality. I am very comfortable with
Yeah.
things not being perfectly aligned, and they are very uncomfortable, and they're part of my leadership team.
Yeah.
So then we could have the conversation of, I've got you. You don't have to worry about me. I have resources beyond what you can see that, without saying it, are none of your business, but I've got a plan B here. So
Yeah.
your job is not in jeopardy, and nor is this company. And this leadership team, you know what they did? They all pulled up their bootstraps and they're like, we're on board with this. Okay, are you okay if I run with this? And all of a sudden, I just like, my jaw dropped. I thought, what just happened here? What just happened here where, oh, I'm no longer the one carrying the full load, though I was comfortable, but all of a sudden it was, hey, I'd really like to work on this element to get our marketing in line. And I just sat back and just, I was in shock because there was no pushing, hey, will you do this? Will you do this?
Yeah.
And after the fact, I had to say, what happened here? Well, there's an empowerment that happens
Yep.
when from the self-awareness, and then from stating it from curiosity, and then recognizing where my strengths were blinding them. And then anyway, it was, and that was all around dollars coming in and dollars going out of the business.
Absolutely.
But it's still, I mean, honestly, if you don't have dollars coming in and you don't have dollars going out, then you don't have a complete business, right? So that does impact everything, but for me, it didn't impact I could focus on other things, knowing that was gonna, I had other resources to handle that. But for my team, it shut them down. It shut them
Yeah.
down. And that's not what we want. So if I were going to say to your audience and anyone who listens to this, then sit back down and say, what am I really comfortable with? And is my extreme comfortable with this blinding someone else in my business?
Yeah, right.
And to have that conversation, and maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. And for me, it's like, but be curious about yourself, and let's just, going back to the debt conversation.
Yeah.
For some of us that are comfortable with debt, business owners, like, okay, yeah, we're going to be short. I'm just going to take out this loan. Well, what that can do to somebody else in your company, especially in your leadership team, is if they are not comfortable with debt, and without
Yeah.
talking about it, it's like, oh my gosh, we're going into debt. The ship is sinking. Whereas it's like, no, this is a bridge to get us over to here.
Right.
There's no problem. Again, and you go back to this and say, it seems to be just about dollars and decisions, but there's some behavior elements of it and some traits that then contribute to shutting somebody down or empowering them. So especially those that you manage around you and are closest to you, approach it with curiosity to see that if it's blinding them or shutting them down.
And I'm going to put a cherry on that and say, remember that, and it's just what you're saying. I'm just going to rephrase it a little bit just to give it a little more emphasis, is when you are focused on profit first, you understand that it's critically important that your team is sane, that they are not stressed, that they have some level of comfort with decisions that are being made, and that they know that you are focused on profit first. I think if you're sharing that with your team and helping them understand how the decisions that you're making impact that, they'll learn over time not to be so uncomfortable when certain things happen, because, owning a business is a journey, and it's going to have its ups and downs and challenges. And you don't want to always have to be in a place where you have to pull people off a ledge.
Yeah. Oh, there's some criticism from, I'm going to say, non-business owners of, well, if you're paying yourself as a business owner, the profit first, which is the elements of it are, as a business owner, that you pay yourself profit, which is the risk for starting your own business.
Yeah.
And you also pay yourself, whether it's a salary or a draw, for the work that you do as the business owner in the company. And then you make sure there's the taxes. Well, all three of those are meant to be put into the pocket of the business owner. And then what is the remainder is all of your operating expenses. So from someone who's not a business owner, it looks like, well, look, Michelle's taking all this money for what she does. Yeah. Well, when you're able to say, no, this is not Michelle's money, this is the business owner's money, to assure that there is always a business for you to get your paycheck, regardless of who sits in this seat. Because if Michelle decides that she's done, then the new business owner can come in and know that there's a profit and there's a way to pay themselves and a way to pay their taxes. And guess what? Your job still exists. Yeah. So we look at these legacy companies like Nike and Coca-Cola and you can name them all here. And what those business owners were able to do is they're still here. And guess what? There still is a profit, and they still get criticized for the profit and for what the chief executive officer. But what everyone seems to forget is that there was a time where everybody else got paid and that business owner didn't. Yeah. And there was a time when that business owner went into personal debt or put their house on the line or whatever else, or had sleepless nights or borrowed to make payroll or whatever else. And it's okay. Because as business owners, we have a risk tolerance for that. We can do it. And we've got a little bit of a gut to handle that. And then you get to a legacy state. And so once that part is explained, that my real job is to make sure you always have a job. And part of that is to set this company up in a way that it can go into perpetuity, become a legacy business, if that is what is needed in the world. And you can have a job until you want to retire. Right. And so it takes that element away from it as well of the criticism that often comes with, boy, you're just enriching your pockets or whatever else.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Oh, Michelle, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate you coming on here with me. Will you tell the listeners how they can find you, please?
Oh, absolutely. So I am here at Sum of All Numbers. That's SUM of All Numbers. And we just love working with small businesses and helping them primarily with their cash flow so that can just be something that you do not have to worry about. But we really shine in the area of looking at you as a unique individual so that you can manage your company with what your strengths are. So, they can go right to our website at Sum of All Numbers.
Excellent. Thank you. And listeners, thank you. You are who we're doing this for. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, a production of Evergreen Podcasts. Discover more episodes of this podcast and explore others at evergreenpodcast.com. As always, continue to prosper and be curious. And if you're looking to get your sales strategy headed in the right direction, pick up a copy of Succeed Without Selling on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Until we meet again on another episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, goodbye and good day.
Do you love news about LinkedIn, Indeed, Google, and just about every other recruitment tech company out there?
Hell yeah. I'm Chad.
I'm Cheese.
We're the Chad and Cheese Podcast.
All the latest recruiting news and insights are on our show.
Dripping in snark and attitude.
Subscribe today wherever you listen to your podcasts.
We out.